He's a career corrections officer. Between the death of his mother, who was a corrections officer, and death by suicide of a person in his custody, he went into a very dark space. He found his solution in helping others, in particular, dressing up as a superhero. Welcome to the Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show. In the Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show, we are joined by special guests talking about their experiences, the realities of investigating crimes, plus those who have experienced horrendous trauma. Police, first responders, military, and victims of crime share their stories. Hi, I'm John J. Wiley. In addition to being a broadcaster, I'm also a retired police sergeant. Be sure to check out our website, letradio.com, and also like us on Facebook. Search for the Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show. The Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show is brought to you in part by Breakfast with Champions Rooms in the Clubhouse drop-in social audio chat app. By the way, download the app today. It is free. And also join us in Breakfast with Champions, also free. I'm there almost every day of the week, every weekday morning. It's a great place to educate yourself, get some motivation, inspiration, and make friends from all over the planet. That's the Breakfast with Champions Rooms in the Clubhouse drop-in social audio app. Get it today. It is free. Both are free. Get more details online at the bwcinfo.com. Calling us from California, we have Yuri Williams on the phone. Yuri is a corrections officer and a superhero. I'll let him explain that in a moment. Yuri, first, thanks for being a guest on the show. Very much appreciated.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate you reaching out for getting me on the show.
I met Yuri in the Clubhouse drop-in audio chat app quite a while ago. When I heard his story, I was like, man, we got to get him on a Law Enforcement Today show. When people do extraordinary things, people need to hear what they do. And quite honestly, a big part of the reason why I do this show is because it shatters stereotypes that Hollywood loves to perpetuate about law enforcement officers. By the way, if you are on the Clubhouse drop-in audio chat app, look for me, John, the middle initial J, Wiley, W-I-L-E-Y, or search for the @LET radio show. Yuri, we met a while ago, and I'm just going to put it out there. When you mentioned dressing up like a superhero, my first thought was, okay, this guy's like those goofballs in New York City, you know, the ones I'm talking about. Hey, take a picture with Batman and for $1. That's what I thought. Like, but that's not the case of what you do at all. What is it you're doing?
Well, I'm actually dressing up as superheroes and trying to use that as a distraction when I visit these hospitals or, veterans or houseless people in my community and around the 50 states.
So you dress up like Batman, Superman?
I have a Deadpool costume, Spider-Man, Mandalorian, Stormtrooper. I got about 10 different costumes to change up into.
Before we get into the nuts and bolts of this, I'm sure you don't tell the ladies, by the way, I have a closet full of superhero costumes. I don't think it'd be a big hit. I'm not a ladies' man. I don't know, but I don't think that'd go over really well.
I don't know, Jay. I don't know what to say, man.
Yeah. One of the things you do, and we're going to talk about the details in a moment, but I'm going to encapsulate when you talk about kids who are sick, who have serious illnesses, they're in the hospital, they've been there for a long period of time, you'll dress up like a superhero and go visit them to try to distract them from their current situation. Is that correct?
Yes, that's absolutely correct. And, I use this as a distraction for myself. It's therapeutic for me because of the reason why I do it, because of my mother's passing. But when I enter these hospitals, these kids are taking different medications every day, and they're down every day because they can't get visits, especially during the pandemic. So, once I get in there, my 5, 10, 15, 30-minute interaction with you is nothing but to bring pure joy to you. I don't want you to be in pain or, frowning up. I want you to smile when I enter that room, and 90% of the time that's what occurs.
I'm one who thinks that working in the law enforcement field is a very powerful, very noble vocation. It's a very important calling in life because it's about serving people. But this is equally as admirable and as noble, going out there and just spending, look, if it's 2 hours of your day to help someone else, that's some powerful medicine, not only for them, but for you as well.
Right. I mean, just bringing joy to people, that keeps me going every day. You know, like if I'm in pain from my back hurting or whatever, as long as I can get a smile out of somebody out on the street, or, you know, just a hello, a smile, a thank you, that just makes my day and makes me, you know, continue to do what I do, and that's to service people, like you stated.
And you've been working in corrections for how long?
21 years now. So
you're not a rookie, and you're probably bordering on this salty veteran. It's like, another day, I got to do this. There's some good, there's some bad, and there's a lot of in-between that goes with that job. And I'm sure, let's start with some of the good. Not everything in corrections, and by the way, my hat's off to men and women who work corrections. I could never do that. It's a special person that develops a skill set to be able to do that. The noise alone in those institutions would drive me out of my mind. I really couldn't take it. So you've had a lot of mixed experiences in 20 plus years, correct?
Yes. Oh, yes. A lot of mixed ones. And, you know, I started with, actually, the way I got into this field was I followed my mother's footsteps. And, you know, I think I was probably 6 to 8 years old at the time. I would go to work with her on the weekend because she didn't have anybody to babysit me. And at that time, you could bring kids in or whatever. So
wait a second. This is almost as explosive as a superhero costumes or closet. You got to go to prison for weekends, bring the kid to prison day?
Yeah. I mean, I was that kid there, you know. During this time, it's funny, though, because that's when I learned about Mr. Rogers and G.I. Joe and all that stuff, because the parents would come in and bring toys for these kids, you know, and, you know, they tell you before you get there you can't give the kids toys, you know, and these parents were bringing these toys every day. So I got to, you know, take these toys home because the parents didn't follow directions. But at the same time, I got to sit there and watch my mother at work, and everything she did, you know, go talk to these kids. And, you know, she was only 5'3" at the 5'4" at the tallest. And I mean, I saw her talk to this kid. I will never forget, a Samoan kid. He was 6'4", about 300 pounds, and she just ripped him apart. And I'm like, dang, this guy's probably going to hit her or something. And this kid just started crying, you know, and I'm like, what kind of power does she have? You know, but the way she was firm, fair, and honest with these kids, that's the same, you know, mentality and the skills that I took from her, and I carry that on for 21 plus years now.
So you're talking about kids in corrections in the system?
Yes.
So gangs, people that have been in trouble, and you don't wind up, I don't know about your state, in Maryland, for example, you don't wind up in the kids' corrections system for having one bad moment or having a couple bad moments. Kids get so many bites out of the apple before they're incarcerated, for lack of better words, because it's not quite the same as an adult system. But they have to do some serious crimes, and they are at it quite a bit before they wind up being incarcerated.
Right, absolutely right. And I mean, you know, these kids, I think this is a different generation that we're in. You know, the social media is part of the problem. These kids getting bullied at school, and the parents not being home or able to control these kids is the majority of the problem. You know, you have grandparents raising these youth, and they don't know anything about social media to keep track of what these kids are watching and this and that. But at the same time, you know, I chose this job to help these kids, you know, let them know that I've been in that situation. I've come from South Central LA, the gangbang capital during the 80s, and I know what these kids are going through, you know, and I try to explain to them, I know what you guys are going through, but it's better ways than hanging out on the street corner or, you know, doing negative activity. There's so many different ways now you can make money, you know, including social media, that you don't need to do that type of activity.
Oh, there's so many different ways. Radio, podcast, Clubhouse, what you talked about, all the social media platforms. And I remember talking with young drug dealers working as a police officer in Baltimore and having a conversation saying, you know, you spend every day out here, nights, holidays, weekends, all kinds of weather, dodging police, dodging other dealers, trying to avoid people ripping you off, everything else. If you applied that energy to something legitimate, you would be a multi-millionaire before you know. We were talking with Yuri Williams. He does some very special things, a corrections officer from California. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. Looking to store sensitive samples or substances? A desiccator cabinet, sometimes called a nitrogen dry box, is the perfect solution. These cabinets maintain a low humidity environment to professionally preserve your valuable samples and substances. And where can you find the best desiccator cabinets? Try DesiccatorCabinetsDirect.com. They offer the lowest prices, quality products, and top-rated customer service for an unforgettable shopping experience. Visit them online at DesiccatorCabinetsDirect.com or search for them on Amazon.
Breakfast with Champions is the tool I use in the morning to get myself ready to face the world. There is so much negativity as you move about your day, from traffic to politics. The conversations are motivating and inspiring, and I can face the world with a positive attitude. So join us in the Breakfast with Champions rooms. Download the Clubhouse app today for free and join us soon. Online at www.thebwcinfo.com.
Back to our conversation with Yuri Williams, corrections officer calling us from California. By the way, he is also a superhero. I don't mean just because he's a corrections officer. He literally dresses up like superheroes and visits sick kids in a hospital, homeless men and women, military men and women in hospitals, you name it. His website is afuturesuperhero.com. That is afuturesuperhero.com. We wanted to break, Yuri. We're talking about your career in corrections, and it kind of blows my mind. I can't see them bringing kids to prison anymore. I don't see that happening.
No.
I think we've gotten beyond that point. But
right.
There's a lot of things I did as a kid that you can't do anymore either. And it's a lot of it I think is good and really helped shape me as the person I am today. But you decided, following your mom's footsteps, working in corrections, that was a career field you wanted to get into as well.
Yes. I mean, I love. It's funny. I had a chance to actually work with her, beside her, as a student worker, and that was like a Kobe and Shaq moment. Like I got to see all the stuff that she did. I got to interview clients and this and that, and that is one of the reasons why. I just wanted to follow her footsteps, because she enjoyed what she did, and I actually got to see her out on the streets and inside of the jail at the same time. Taking care of her clients, and she really loved how I really loved how she stayed on people when we, were out in the streets, because her clients were in the same community as us. So we'll be driving down the street and she'll pull over, get out and yell at them and tell them you're not supposed to be doing this. But the love that she had for these individuals, and for some of I'll never forget, at her funeral, a lady that was locked up in juvenile hall came to the funeral and said, thank you for staying on me. That just brought me to tears, knowing that somebody came from 20, 40 plus years out after to the funeral to, recognize you for the service that you do. And that's one of the reasons why I followed her footsteps again.
One of the powerful things about that statement, Yuri, is the news media, Hollywood, they'd have you believe that every relationship between a law enforcement officer and anyone that's a criminal or been in trouble is always adversarial, it's always hostile, it's always violent, and it's degrading. And the truth is, it's nothing like that at all for the vast majority of them.
That's true. That's the absolute truth. I'd say 80% or 90%, is positive interaction. They just show the negativity and people love negativity, so that's how they win majority of the time.
Social media negativity and drama seems to dominate.
Right. Absolutely right.
And not just in social media, in network news as well. One of the things that, and I'm going to just get on my soapbox real quick. Let me pull it up here. One of the things is, if someone does something outrageous, very critical, very hostile, they get front page publicity by everybody. They get publicity and promotion via social media. I can't believe what so-and-so did. I can't believe this. I can't believe that. Let's make them famous. And meanwhile, people like you that are doing great things to help our fellow man, not to sound ideological, it's awfully hard to get any publicity at all.
I've reached out to media and, let them know what I'm doing. And, they tell me majority of the time they can't make it. So I just continue doing what I do, even though they don't want to see, the positivity that's going on in the neighborhoods,
It doesn't match their agenda, and it just doesn't. And I really don't want to talk about them, because it's taking away from your story. And your story is a powerful story. You've been working in corrections for 21 years. You followed in your mom's footsteps. And by the way, she reminds me of my mom from what you say. My mother, to this day, would have no problem pulling over the side of the street and yelling at people and saying, hey, you need to cut that out. And she's like 80, she'll be 85 in a couple months. So, and it's just no change her. That's just the way she is. Your mom did this. She was the kind of person who dedicated her life to helping others. She worked corrections, and her day didn't end when she clocked out because you were in the same neighborhood where a lot of people that you worked with resided.
Right. That's exactly true. I mean, you know, we like I said earlier, we driving down the street, and if she saw one of her clients doing something that they had no business, she'll pull over to the side in the middle of a green light and just, you know, let them have it.
Oh, I would have loved to have met your mom, and I'm so sorry to hear she passed away. She obviously got sick. What happened?
Yeah, she had a 8-year battle of cancer. You know, one day she hid it from me for 7 years, and one day, you know, she called me at work and just told me about it, and I'm just like, man, I just lost it after that because I didn't know, you know, how much longer she was going to be here, and I mean, she fought until the last day. And, you know, on her deathbed, she told me to take care of my daughter, be good, and just help people, you know, and that's the only thing that I know.
My father passed away from lung cancer many, many, many years ago. I think it's 24 years ago. And the truth is, I tell people to this day, it doesn't get easier. You just get more used to it.
Right. I mean, you can't bandage a shotgun wound. You can only, you know, take it day by day, and you know that's what I try to do, and I use helping people as a distraction, and you know also therapeutic for me to, you know, continue my legacy and keep her name alive.
There's also some other things, and we'll return to the conversation about your mom in a moment. There's also other things you encountered while you were working around that time period between the death of your mom and an incident, I believe, with a young man. It kind of threw you into a really dark place. Yeah,
a youth committed suicide, you know, while I was on duty, and I was actually the first person to go in there, you know, to try to revive this youth, and you know, he didn't survive or whatever. I tried my best, but that really tore me up because, I mean, coming from South Central LA, I've seen a friend of mine got his leg shot off. You know, we've seen the gun violence. I ran with my mother from a concert when they were shooting before. I've been held at gunpoint before, but to actually see somebody that you're seeing every day on a daily basis, and you're trying to encourage this person to do what's right, and to go in that room and see that, you know, it kind of ripped me up for a little while. And, you know, there was a movie, I cannot remember the name of it, 1942 or something, and that movie, it was a hotel movie, and a scene came on where the noose came down, and I don't know, I just happened to see that kid's face in there during the movie, and then, you know, I had to leave the theater or whatever. Then I went and got therapy, and the funny thing about it is, you know, I didn't think I needed it at the time. I know I didn't need it, you know, because the way I carry myself, my mind is straight all the time, you know, and I didn't feel I needed it, but, you know, the job made sure that I had it. So during these sessions or whatever, there was an activity, I'll never forget this, and I hope I can find this paper where it said something to the effect of, what is something you want to do before, you know, your life ends? And I said I wanted to visit 50 states and hug one person in each state. And I had the chance to do that 2 times and hopefully going on 3 times during this holiday coming up. And that probably was the most rewarding thing that I've ever done in my life, was to visit all 50 states and actually hug a person in each state and do something kind for those individuals, you know, and that, I will never forget that. You know, it's like I tell people all the time, our life seems like it's already written, and I go back and look how I started, you know, to do this 50-state tour, and I met my brother Rodney Smith Jr., and I look back, and it started from that piece of paper, you know.
We're going to take a short break. We're talking with Yuri Williams. By the way, he's a corrections officer and a superhero. We'll talk more about that when we return. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
Breakfast with Champions is the tool I use in the morning to get myself ready to face the world. There is so much negativity as you move about your day from traffic to politics. The conversations are motivating and inspiring, and I can face the world with a positive attitude. So join us in the Breakfast with Champions rooms. Download the Clubhouse app today for free and join us soon. Online at www.thebwcinfo.com.
One of the questions I get all the time is, how can I show my support for law enforcement? We're all busy. We've got busy lives, but there's something oh so simple you can do with our Facebook page. Search for Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show Facebook page. And when you see a post you agree with that resonates with you, share it, especially episodes of the podcast. To do all that, just search for us on Facebook, look for Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show, and be sure to click like. Back to our conversation with Yuri Williams, calling us from California. He is a corrections officer. He is also a superhero, dresses up in superhero costumes, visits sick kids in a hospital, veterans in a hospital, homeless, you name it, he does it. By the way, his website is afuturesuperhero.com. That's afuturesuperhero.com. Before we end the break, Yuri, we're talking about, look, the stresses of working in corrections. I've never done it. I told you why I couldn't do it. I think it takes special people to do that, and you acquire special skill sets. It's a real vocation, and it's certainly law enforcement, and it's part of the Blue family. People may think otherwise, but it is, in my opinion, always has been. Then you add into this equation your mom getting sick and battling cancer and passing away. And then you have a young man that you were working with who dies by suicide on your watch. And those things right there, those three things right there can be enough to be the thing that pushes almost anybody over the edge. Is that what happened to you?
Yeah, I mean, all these different things occurring at the same time, put you over the edge. And luckily, during that 5-year period of depression with my mother, I was able to find a healthy way to keep her name alive, and also was just therapeutic to me, and that's, helping people and dressing up in costumes or whatnot.
By the way, I should have asked earlier, what was your mom's name?
Lynda C. Hubbard.
Lynda C. Hubbard. I'm glad you talked about the things she did. I'm glad you talked about her service, because she's not here to talk about it. And people that do extraordinary things for the communities need to be recognized. We talked about this earlier. If you do something outrageous, preponderous, or preposterous is the term I'm looking for, and you're critical of everybody, whatever it might be, you'll get all kinds of attention. You could rob a bank and get lots of attention. You could be a mass murderer and everybody knows your name. You do something good and you feed 100 people a day, no one knows who you are.
Right. That's the truth. I mean, I don't do it for publicity and all that stuff, but at the same time, I needed to help me continue doing my mission, because 80% to 90% of the funds, are coming from my paycheck when I'm doing this overtime. And, I'm not getting these big grants like, Red Cross and all these other places. But, I mean, I'm actually out there doing the work. If people go to the website and Instagram, you can see for yourself, and you'll be amazed how much stuff one individual can do. You mean you're not making a lot of money working corrections? No, everybody thinks that, but no. Well, and truth be told, I stopped watching a lot of what Hollywood puts out on television and movies about policing and law enforcement, because it's so far from the truth. My wife and I are watching this series called Bosch right now on... Oh, I love that. It's a great show, but I look at his house and I go, who the heck lives like that or works as a police? No one lives like that. And he has, I'll just say this, he has a stereo equipment that's really big for him. He's an audiophile, and he has a receiver. I looked it up. This is how goofy I am, Yuri. We're watching Bosch, and I'm Googling at the same time because they had a close-up of this receiver, and I looked it up, and I said, Stephanie, my wife's name's Stephanie, that receiver cost $7,400. She's like, what is wrong with you? I said, because no police ever lives like that. Except in Hollywood. Right. It's a great show. I love that show. And we'll talk about that another time. It's a great cast. Jamie Hector does a phenomenal job. A lot of
The actors from The Wire are in that show as well. It's a great show.
Yeah.
But so you're funding a lot of what you do through your own pocket. And we'll get back to how people can help out, because any kind of donation people can make, I'm sure, would go a long way.
Right, absolutely. I mean, I tell people, even I'll take a penny. Everything adds up.
And your website's afuturesuperhero.com. So your mom died. This young man died by suicide. You said earlier you went into a depression. You didn't think you needed help. It lasted 5 years.
Yeah, I mean, that was probably the worst time of my life, because I would be, talking to you like this, and if I heard a song or had a memory of her, I would just be bawling in tears. There were times where I just sat in the bed and just sat there all day and laid there all day. And then, I'd get up and go somewhere and talk to people like nothing is wrong. And then I just said to myself one day, I can't live life like this. And I snapped out of it. And I returned to work after my coworkers donated leave time for me to rehab myself. And while I'm sitting there in the car, I usually call my mom about 5:30 or 5:45 before I go in at 6. And, I'm calling her and the phone's just ringing and ringing and it goes to voicemail. And I'm like, she's not here. So I sat there, I called a job. I told them, give me like an hour to get myself together. I got on Instagram. I never had an Instagram account at the time. And the first person that popped up was Officer Tommy Norman from North Little Rock, Arkansas. And I loved his videos, all of the stuff he was doing in the community. And I'm like, this is some of the similar stuff that I do. So then the second person popped up was a hip-hop trooper who's a cosplayer who dresses up as a red Star Wars stormtrooper. And I loved Star Wars growing up as a kid. So I sat there and I'm like, these guys, are making people smile and this and that. And that's when I came up with the idea to put all three of us together. And I created the nonprofit of Future Superhero and Friends. And I haven't looked back, hadn't had depression since.
That's phenomenal. There's so much therapeutic aid that comes from when we are stuck on our own miserable thinking. Turning our thoughts to how we can benefit someone else around us changes it. And then following up with some action really helps change it. But I want to backtrack, because earlier you said in therapy, they said, what was one thing you'd like to do? And you said, I want to visit all 50 states and hug one person each state at least once. And then you met somebody. Who was that?
Yeah, Rodney Smith Jr. He's from Bermuda, but he's stationed in Alabama. And what he does is he mows free lawns for veterans, single mothers, those with disabilities, or, those with low income. And, I just happened to be following him on his tour on Instagram. And I'm like, this guy is actually doing something that's similar to me, just doing it for free. And I'm like, it's not that many people out here that are doing stuff for free. I mean, he's doing it every single day for free. He's been around the States 10 times. That's dedication at its finest. If you don't want to get paid off of this and you just helping people. And I finally, got a chance to meet up with him. And he'll tell you to this day, I kept bugging him like, man, I want to go on a tour with you. I want to go on a tour with you. And that tour, healed me, and that was the best feeling in the world. And I just said, hopefully one day, 5 more years before I can retire, that I can just do that every day. It's so fulfilling. And the joy that we get out of talking to each other and running ideas off each other to help people is just amazing. Please
tell him I said thank you as well for what he's doing. And I'd like to make a spot for him on the show as well.
Okay.
You brought up a great point. If you really want something in life, I'll use radio as an example. If you really want to get into radio now, there's less opportunities there were when I was a teenager. So what you got to do is you got to be a thorn in someone's side. You got to contact them all the time. Hey, I want to come hang out. Anything I can do? Can I get you coffee? Can I make a cake? Can I do this? Whatever it might be. It may seem like you're a real thorn in their side, but that's what it takes. You must have known and been so impressed by what he was doing that this would be in some way your own salvation.
Yes, and that's why I stayed on him and, bugged him, and we laugh about it all the time because, I was just so happy to see that somebody is, similar to me. I look in the mirror and I see myself. Every time he makes a positive post about helping somebody, I just congratulate him and thank him for, at the same time helping me out of my tunnel, because that was a dark tunnel. And then I got to tell people all the time, depression can be deadly. And if you don't get it under control, you can become, houseless. And a lot of these individuals that I interact with have depression, have fell into that depression and have become houseless, and people don't understand that.
Absolutely. You are 100% correct. We are talking with Yuri Williams. Yuri is a corrections officer in the state of California. He is also a superhero. Check out his website, afuturesuperhero.com. Take a short break. I promise you, we'll be right back.
First thing in the morning on my phone, I join the Breakfast with Champions morning show in the Clubhouse social audio app. Both are free. I can grab my coffee, no makeup, no hair to do, and connect with people live from all across the world to jumpstart my day. Join us in the Breakfast with Champions rooms in the Clubhouse social audio app.
Online at www.thebwcinfo.com.
Be sure to follow the Law Enforcement Talk radio show and podcast on the Newsbreak app. Newsbreak is your #1 local news app for current events, free live news for you and your community. Download the Newsbreak app today for free, and be sure to follow the Law Enforcement Talk radio show and podcast on the Newsbreak app. Back to our conversation with Yuri Williams on the Law Enforcement Show. Yuri is an interesting cat. He is a corrections officer in the state of California. He also likes to dress up in superhero costumes. You thought it was going to say something different, didn't you? California. I know, but don't go there. I'm not that kind of show. He is a founder of a futuresuperhero.com. We'll talk about that in a moment. And I met Yuri in the Clubhouse drop-in audio chat app a while ago. It was a phenomenal way to meet people from all over the world. If you join that, look for me, John, the middle initial J, Wiley, Wiley, or search for @LET Radio Show. So in your 21-year career in corrections, we talked about earlier, you've seen a lot of good, a lot of bad, and a lot of the ugly, and a lot of in between. I imagine it's a lot like a police career. I tell people it's hours and hours of boredom followed by sheer exhilaration and adrenaline, fight or flight, then back to boredom. And it may happen a couple times a shift. But the exposure to all the trauma and the violence after a while catches up to you. And to this day, Yuri, I still get what I call the sadness. Now, people would never know by looking at me that I really struggled for a long time between 90 and 93. And I was where you were at in a lot of ways. But that trauma over and over and over again, then compounded the death of my father, a few other things, I was not the same guy anymore.
Right. I mean, how did you get through?
I had to get busy helping other people. That was the ultimate solution. I had to find a way to get out of myself and my own stinking thinking and own misery and find a way to get back. I was no longer police. I couldn't do that anymore. That part of my identity was gone. I had to find something to do to help somebody else. And if it was, someone with substance abuse problems, great. If it was a homeless person, great. If it was helping pets at an animal shelter, I needed to do something to help somebody.
Right. That's the only way you can, get out of the situation. And I tell people that all the time. Don't just, when you're in a depression, don't just sit around in that bed, because you will be in there for days.
Laying in bed is one of the worst things. You'll be tired and drowsy and don't want to go anywhere, so you go to sleep. And guess what? That compounds the problem. You got to get up. You got to get busy. And as they say, make hay when the sun's shining. And working in law enforcement, that ain't easy, because you work probably shift work, don't you?
Yeah, 3 to 4, 16 hours of a week.
And add into that all the violence, all the trauma. And I think a big part of the problem for me, Yuri, was the desperation that people saw and the degrading lives they lived.
Right. No, I understand that part.
So how do you go and try to make a positive difference working in corrections?
Like I said earlier, I use what, the community that I came from. And a lot of these kids are in that same predicament, and the parents aren't supervising them. Like, my mom was on me 24/7. It was nothing I could do, without her permission. These kids nowadays are just running rampant, not going to school or, doing drugs. And this, like I keep saying, the social media is ripping these kids apart. Like they think they have to post everything, everything that they're doing. But at the same time, all this posting you're doing is just, going to put yourself behind bars because they're going to use that against you at a later time, And I try to tell these kids, stop doing all this negativity from using that social media and try to find, careers or something that you like. You'd be surprised how many kids are incarcerated that can draw. I mean, it's insane. Like, this kid can draw Disney characters, and I'm like, you could make a career, at Walt Disney. They got guys in here that can, cut hair. I'm like, you guys could go to barber school. You don't have to go to. I tell these kids all the time, you don't have to go to college nowadays. There's so many different ways that you can make money with a trade. Social media, all type of different ways. Like you said, radio, and I think you just have to keep sending that message to these kids until they get it. And I keep hammering on them on that nail every day and just keep reminding them. And when I get those messages or phone calls, or paper sent in the mail saying, "Thank you, Williams, for helping me," that's the greatest feeling in the world. It's just priceless.
We talked earlier about the suicide of a young man on your watch. What's the worst part of your career? One of the worst experiences you've been through besides that?
Other than that, I can't even think of anything as bad as that. Just, these kids just coming back on drugs and not knowing who you are and just continuously using these drugs. And then you see them, all their brain cells are starting to disappear from using the drugs. When they first entered, they were, normal-looking kids. And, this meth is the new thing out here, and it's eating these kids alive. And that's probably the second worst part of seeing these kids destroy themselves at an early age.
I remember when crack cocaine came to Baltimore and how we had huge drug problems before that. We had huge drug problems and violence after that. And we still have it now. I think now Baltimore is called the heroin capital of the East Coast of the United States. The things that we were dealing with in the 80s and 90s are still going on today. And I don't know what the answers are. I just know, sticking a needle in my arm or smoking crack or smoking meth or drinking is not the answer. It's not going to change. It's not going to make anything better.
Right. I agree with you on that. And that's what I try to keep reminding these guys every day. And, hopefully when they might get to the point where they realize that later on in life, but I hope it's earlier than later.
And I hope that you have a point where you have more people contacting and say, Yuri, thanks for all you did. Thanks for everything you did because you helped turn my life around. And there are people like that. And quite often we don't get the privilege of seeing them and meeting them. I've had people I had to arrest that wound up getting sober, getting clean and sober, and approaching me 6 months later saying, thank you for what you did. You helped save my life. And that was a very underreported part of law enforcement you don't hear much about. I want to change gears here. FutureSuperhero.com is your website. And basically what you do, Yuri, is you dress up in superhero costumes. You visit kids in hospitals, houseless people, veterans in hospitals, and you do it all on your own dime. You don't have enough fundraising. Every nonprofit, every charity I've talked to said the fundraising is the other F word, and that's not a good thing. I'm sure for you it's a huge problem.
Yeah, I mean, it's a major problem because if I were able to get some of the funding that, some of these big corporations get, I could help so many different people because I don't like some of the ways that, these people use the funds. And, I'm one that I'm here just to help people. And that's basically it. If I had more funds, I could help some of these veterans, get off the street or find their housing. And the problem that I see with the houseless community in California, which is the number one houseless community in the world, is these guys get so many grants and they continue to ask for grants, but they're not doing anything to, alleviate the problem. I want to try something new and try my way and see if maybe this is the way that can help them off the streets. I've been to these meetings, and I talk to these people and they seem not to ignore, they don't want to listen to me and they ignore what I'm trying to help them do. And, I'm not charging anything. I just want to be the help. So, the fundraising portion, I would just want to use the funds to try it my way and, help these kids anyway, or the houseless or the veterans or any way that I can,
Wouldn't it be a dramatically different proposition if we just did things differently? And I'll just use where I came from as an example. Baltimore has spent millions, if not billions of dollars so-called reinvesting into underserved communities, and nothing's changed.
Right.
The population leaves, the crime rate is horrible, the education's horrible, there are vacant homes everywhere, there's drug use rampant, there's violence rampant, and nothing changes except certain people get wealthier.
Right, that's the truth. I mean, and then you know, you look to these politicians for answers, and you know, we got to talk about that next meeting or next time. And, you know, like, when am I going to get the answer? You know.
Well, that's like asking the problem to solve the problem. But I'm not going to get on that rant. You also have a podcast. Tell us about that.
Yeah, me and Rodney decided to come up with a podcast where we interview people around the world, you know, doing good things. I just got tired of hearing, you know, people arguing all the time and stuff on podcasts. So I'm like, well, let's see if we can get some people that are doing good around the world and see if we can get people on the show and see if people will tune in and listen.
And what is the name of your podcast?
Thank Good It's Friday.
Thank Good It Is Friday. And on that note, we're going to wrap things up. Yuri, I want to thank you so much for being a guest on the show. Thanks for all you do. Thanks for your service. And thanks for all the superhero stuff as well, because I'll be honest with you, deep down inside, I'm a Superman freak.
Oh, Jay, and thank you. I appreciate you for your service, sir, and having me on today.
If you want to be a guest on the Law Enforcement Talk radio show, simply contact us. It couldn't be easier. You can send us a message on Facebook. Look for and like the Law Enforcement Talk radio show page, or email jay@letradio.com. That's JAY@letradio.com. This was the podcast version of the nationally syndicated Law Enforcement Talk radio show, and we are so glad that you decided to join us. Big thanks to our guests for telling their story on the show. 2 simple things you can do. Be sure to check out our website, letradio.com. That's letradio.com. And be sure to follow us or like us on Facebook. Do a search on Facebook for Law Enforcement Talk radio show. And be sure when you see a post that we put up that you like, that you resonate with, that gets your attention, be sure to share it with your friends. We'll be back in just a few days with another great episode of the show. See you then.